Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I am so excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about our next presenter. I have known her for over 20 years. We went to college together, we cheered together, and she is an awesome teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and do her bio. So Cami is a kindergarten teacher and also serves as her district's federal program's Title I teacher. At school, she wears the hat of the junior high and high school cheerleading coach. She enjoys spending time teaching 5 through 18-year-olds, but really enjoys working with adult students and sharing the same passions for education as they do. She has a bachelor's in elementary education from Fort Hays State University. After college, she got married and started her family and got a job teaching first grade. She obtained her master's teacher with a reading specialist endorsement master degree from Emporia State University. And this is when she realized she had a deep passion for literacy and knew that she wanted to be an instructional literacy coach, which is the endorsement that she's currently working on. In her free time, she does all things sports with her family. And I can attest that she is at every sporting event because that's what she shares on social media. And she is an awesome mom and an awesome teacher. She also teaches for us here at Ashford University. So I'm so excited to introduce Cami. Cami, if you'll go to the next slide for me, please.
Okay.
This is the first disclaimer slide saying that an online degree from Ashford University does not lead to immediate teacher licensure in any state. So I'm going to give you just a second to go ahead and read through that. Next slide, please. This is also a disclaimer from Ashford University saying that any links that are provided in this presentation that Ashford is not responsible for and does not endorse or warrant any information. So I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and read those. So without further ado, Cami, I am going to go ahead and let you take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Shipley. It's so glad to be here today. I do wanted to go back to the very first slide though, real quick, as a little disclaimer. This is actually me in my classroom on a family engagement literacy night. I was just sitting here thinking about this picture before we got started, and I wanted to talk about this picture for just a minute. This happened by mistake. We have a family literacy night where the teachers read a book and the students get cookies and milk, and it's just a really exciting time. Well, I ordered these costumes on costumespecialist.com, and they have mascots and literacy costumes, and they're great. I didn't know that they were going to come as big, huge people. I thought they were going to be puppets. Long story short, I didn't know what to do, and so I called on a school board member and our music teacher, and it has evolved into this night where a family gets to come and actually be the mascot. So it's been really fun. Like I said, it was a mistake that involved that evolved into parents really getting involved in a different way, in a different light than we had ever seen before. But they have Pete the cat, and they have Matilda, and we've done the Berenstain Bears, and we've done this now for about 5 years and had a different mascot every time. And it's really been a neat program to watch evolve. But like I said, it was a mistake, but it's really fun. Let me start now. Okay. Thanks again for being here today. I'm thrilled to talk to you about family engagement. Family engagement is something that's really near and dear to my heart. Like Dr. Shipley mentioned, I am the Federal Programs Director and Title I instructional coach for my school. So part of my job is getting families involved. And first and foremost, I am a mom also. So I have 3 students who go to 3 children who also are students in my school district. So it's really neat that I get to see both sides of the spectrum of family engagement. I want to show my parents that family engagement is really important, and I want them into my classroom, and I want them to know what's going on, and we're making goals together and really getting them involved into my classroom as a teacher. But on the flip side of that, I want my own family members, my students, to know how much family engagement means to me, how I want to be involved in all the decision makings. I want to be there for them during their parent-teacher conferences and all of the things that happen at school. So seeing both sides of the spectrum has really opened my eyes once my students got into school as a mom. So my presentation today is going to be kind of flipping back and forth between a mom's view and a teacher's view, and really what we can do to bridge those gaps and kind of bring everybody's views together and be on the same goal. I want to start out with a fun video. Communication is just really the key. It's the most important aspect of family engagement. And communication is where families really, where we really start the building block of family engagement. So I'm going to start out with a fun commercial. Some of you might remember this, and then we'll talk about it. After watching that, like I said, I'm sure most of you remember that video or that commercial that was on, but I hope that we're still not using the message in a bottle approach to communicate with the families that we're in the education system with every day. There's so many ways to communicate with our families that are much more effective than this. And we'll talk about that later on into the slide. But really what I wanted to reiterate with this commercial was that communication really is the key. And some of you are working in a Head Start program or in a school program right now or in a daycare program. When I say communication is the key, I just want us to be cognizant of the authority that you may or may not have right now. When you're student teaching, I know that you're not necessarily supposed to communicate with the parents. We'll leave that up to your cooperating teacher. Just be cognizant of your company's regulations and your school's confidentiality reports, but communication really is where we start with our parents to really get them involved. Okay, for this webinar, our learning goals are to be more mindful about engaging families in the school and daycare setting. Intentionally guide your programs to reach deeper levels of parent engagement. A lot of times we think that we do a great job of parent engagement and parent involvement. You might have programs that are already set in place, which is great. I'm not saying those programs are bad, but we want to really think about how we can reach them at a deeper level and go further into engaging families, maybe families that we don't engage in already or are not engaging themselves. So we're going to talk about some action steps for teachers and parents to be more mindful about family engagement. This is one of my favorite quotes by Lauren Tripp Barless. I actually have this printed and posted on my bulletin board at school just as a reminder, because it's such a powerful quote that we as teachers need to remember. The parents really truly are the center of our students' lives, and ultimately when we bridge that relationship and really care about the relationship that we're building with them, the academic success is going to come. What is the most underused resource in education today? Parents. So really, if we think about how powerful that quote is, we just need to remember that we might see the students 8 hours a day, and the parents might not see them that many hours a day, but it really is a powerful thing to remember that parents really are truly a very powerful source. And so I want to talk to you about how we're going to use parents. And when I say parents, I don't necessarily mean mom and dad, but maybe guardians, whoever has guardianship of the students. I realize that that some students may not have parents, but for this webinar, we're going to use parents loosely, meaning maybe the families also that we need to engage in our students' lives. Okay, this is a definition of family engagement, and I'm going to read this, and then we're going to talk about a phrase that really sticks out to me. This definition was taken from the Head Start website, and really, truly, my whole entire presentation really gears around the Head Start's family engagement definition and also their framework. They have a great website with a lot of resources, and I invite you to go check those out. But their definition of family engagement states that family engagement is a collaborative and strengths-based process through which early childhood professionals, families, and children build positive and goal-oriented relationships. It is a shared responsibilities of families and staff at all levels that require mutual respect for the roles and strengths each has to offer. So as you can tell, I highlighted the word relationships because really I truly think that is the key word that comes from their definition. Family engagement requires making a commitment to creating that ongoing relationships between the parents, the guardians, and the teacher and the students. Family engagement honors that collaboration between parent and child relationships, because ultimately Head Start is saying that the relationships that we have within our students and our families are part of the child's development and how they're if they're ready for school, their school readiness, and just really their well-being. Like I said, this definition came from the Head Start website. I do invite you to go check out the resources that they do have. They have a lot of great things. Okay, again, this is the Head Start's framework. I won't take a lot of time on this slide, but I did want to point out that the Head Start's framework does point out that family engagement and relationships as partners truly is how a student becomes successful. There's a lot of research behind it. Some of you, like I said, are already in a Head Start program or in a daycare setting or even in a school setting. So this just kind of backs up the research of my webinar today that talks about how important family engagement is. And if you look over here on the child outcomes, the purple side, that's really what we want. We want engaged, positive relationships with families. We want kids that are ready for school. We want kids that are safe and healthy and their well-being is taken care of. And so that all comes back to what parents can provide and what teachers can provide and how we can be in a partnership together and really reach for student success on the other end. Okay, our goal number one today is to provide welcoming programs for students to come into and parents to come into. We're going to be more mindful of engaging families in our school and our daycare setting. So these are just easy questions to ask yourself to evaluate the programs that you already have in place. And a lot of the programs that our Head Starts and our schools and our daycares have in place are great, but we might need to tweak them a little bit, or we can tweak them a little bit just to have a deeper relationships with those parents. So is your program welcoming? That's pretty easy. Can we welcome the parents? Have you considered home visits? What are their needs and how are we addressing them? So do you provide daycare, childcare at your programming? Is your programming at 5 o'clock at night? Do you just assume that everybody's works from 8 to 5 and then at 5 they're done? Are we being cognizant of the shift work? Is there a translator available? Just really stopping and thinking, does your staff truly believe that engaging parents is important? When I talk about home visits, have you considered home visits? This is something that I turned away from my first 9 years that I taught first grade. My principal said, why don't you try a home visit? You know, we live in a very high poverty district. Our parents are, they work at the plants and their shift work, and we always have to have a translator. They don't come into parent-teacher conferences. Why don't you try home visits? And my first reaction was, oh my goodness, no, because as a parent in August, we're getting ready for school. I've got 3 kids myself. My house is typically not in tip-top shape. I'm trying to run around getting everything ready. I would not want a teacher to come into my house. There's no way. What else can I try? I don't want to do home visits. And my principal really tried to push me through this and said, just try it and tell me what you think. So I took my list of 25 students. down into a neighborhood that I wasn't comfortable in. I was out of my comfort zone, and I scheduled 30-minute home visits with 10 kids a day. And after the first day, I realized that was not enough time. 30 minutes for these families. Like I said, as a mom, if a teacher said, I'm going to come to your house, just welcome your student, I'm glad to see them, maybe give them a welcome book or something like that, I would try to pick up my living room real quick and just, they're in and out in 30 minutes. Okay. Well, I found out that that was my culture, but not necessarily the culture of the students that I was visiting. I was invited in for supper. They wanted me to sit down with them. They wanted me to stay for hours. They were so welcoming. They respected my job as a teacher. And it just really opened my eyes to, just because that culturally wasn't my cup of tea, the home visits, the clientele that I was teaching that year and in that specific school district, they thrived on that. They wanted me in their home. They wanted me to show, they wanted to show me their importance that they had for me. At one particular family, I sat at the head of their table, and the student said, that's where my dad sits. And the dad just insisted that I sit there, and that's just how important that they made me feel. Again, home visits might not be your thing, but like I said, you just have to really think about what your students and what your families, how are you addressing them to fit their needs? Okay. Sorry, I got off on a little rant on home visits, but that's such a good example, great example of my culture doesn't necessarily mean that's how I need to engage my families in my school district. Okay, our state learning standards. I am actually in Kansas, and we have learning standards that suggest how parents play a role in their child's learning. You might just Google your state learning standards and see if your state addresses family engagement or parent involvement, and just be aware of your state's recommendations of, they might have something program laid out for you. In Kansas, we address them. We want the students to be, or that we want the parents to be active in their child's education. We want them to be a partner in the decision making, and I'll kind of talk to you about that, how that looks within my district in the early childhood. It does look different in the high school, but how decision making as parents, what that can look like in kindergarten, preschool, first grade, and just those two-way meaningful communications. Sometimes we think that we are sending our newsletter home and the parents should read it every Monday and they know what's going on for the week, and then I really shouldn't need to communicate with them again. But in reality, that's really not a great way to communicate with our parents. So not that newsletters are bad. I still send out a newsletter every week just because some parents really lean on that and use that, but some parents don't. And so I'm going to talk about more two-way communication to make meaningful communication kind of guide how you're going with your parent engagement. Okay, so this is where really the meat and the bones are of this presentation. Goal 1 is Goal 2, intentionally guiding your programs to reach deeper levels of parent engagement. So welcoming families, again, that's easy. Establishing your parents' place in your program, make connections with families meaningful, and then I'll talk about 6 types of involvement. So parents that have had few experiences with education or unsuccessful education experiences often might feel intimidated by our school system. Maybe they think they have little to contribute, or that they might mess up of what you're doing in the classroom as a teacher. And so we really want to welcome those families in, more than just a welcoming atmosphere of, hi, how are you doing today? You know, your secretary should always be welcoming, but even more so at a deeper level, really provide parents a sense of empowerment to encourage them to view school as positive. They might not have a positive experience. So bringing them in and showing them a more positive light, helping them plan school events. And this is another one that a trial by error on my part as a teacher, really letting parents plan some of those social events at school. A lot of times whoever the planner is, which in my district, it's me. And so the events that I'm planning reflect my culture and might not necessarily reflect the community that I'm living in. So I'm going to talk about Donuts for Dads a little bit later. Donuts for Dads is a great way to invite dads, or, you know, muffins for moms, invite parents in. But to reach a deeper level, maybe we could have parents help us plan these activities and plan these social events. It has nothing to do with curriculum. They might have a bad view on curriculum because they didn't have a very good education career when they were little. But maybe you could ask them to come in and plan a social event for you, getting outside the barriers of the same moms who do PTO, the same moms who run the book fair, the same moms that are in enrollment, reaching out to some families who might not feel comfortable coming to you. Again, one of my first years teaching, I taught all the cutesy things, you know, St. Patrick's Day, and we did Cinco de Mayo, and we did Chinese New Year, and how I'm not of a Hispanic culture. I don't know how to celebrate Chinese New Year, or Cinco de Mayo, or Chinese New Year for that matter. But I did it how I thought. I bought all the cutesy things from Oriental Trading, and we did the exchange of the red envelope, and we did that for years, and it was cute to me and it worked for me. But then I had a parent come in and say, do you mind if I bring in some of the things from my culture to really celebrate Cinco de Mayo? And I thought, sure, yeah, not a big deal. When he came in, it was actually a grandpa of one of my students. When he came in, the things that he brought were so much more significant than I could have ever ordered from Oriental Trading. Same thing with Cinco de Mayo. You know, we would eat nachos and we would wear sombreros. And then I started thinking, why not utilize the parents that I have in my district who really, truly do celebrate Cinco de Mayo? So really thinking about all the things that you do within your school district and within your classroom to really engage parents. Like I said, even if they don't have a very good, if they didn't have an education experience that was successful, bring them in for the things that they are good at and the things that they know about. And that might break down some barriers that you have with the parents who typically don't get involved. Another thing is education systems use real specific terminology and acronyms that parents are unfamiliar with. So again, this could inhibit parents, their ability to understand and engage in their child's education. So we need to refrain from using the acronyms that we all know as teachers, the IEPs. I mean, I think IEP is something that parents do need to know, but do we really need to talk about curriculum maps and disaggregating data and ILPs and curriculum alignment and ESL and ELL? Do we really need to say, your child is not an ILP, and after I disaggregate the data, we'll talk about it again in October? That kind of might sound scary to them if they have no clue what you're talking about, but really an ILP is just an individualized learning plan. In kindergarten, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, how I develop ILPs with the parents. But an ILP is not a scary thing. It's just what are your students' best ways to learn? What do you want them to learn? Do they like music, or do they like to learn actively? You know, things like that. So ILP, maybe don't use the acronym ILP, just say, I'm going to, together we're going to make a goal of how your student learns, and maybe some hopes and dreams that you want for your students to have this semester, instead of sitting down and saying, we're going to disaggregate data and work on an ILP. That might turn parents away, or even scare parents. So I do advise you to stay away from those acronyms and using the technical terminology with parents. Use things that parents can easily understand, and again, avoid the scary terms. Okay. Real quick, the 6 types of involvement. One thing that I really truly have learned being my district's Title I teacher is that all families care about their children, no matter what race they are, no matter what age they are, no matter where they fit in on the social status and how much money they make, if they're in poverty, if they're not. They truly care about their student, and they want them to succeed. They might show it differently, but they do truly want their student to succeed, and they're eager to earn it, to obtain information from the school. again, what they do with that information might look different to you. So we really need to be cognizant of stereotyping parents or anything, any terms that may turn them off to communicating with you. But on the flip side, all staff and all administration want to involve their families, but they don't necessarily how to go about building those relationships. And consequently, they just stick with the programs that work or the programs that they're currently doing, and not really think about how to go into a deeper level of family engagement. So Epstein has 6 types of involvement, and I'll just, I won't take very long on this slide, but there, type 1 is parenting, type 2 is communicating, type 3 is volunteering, type 4 is learning at home, type 5 is decision making, and type 6 is collaborating with community. I want to take a minute to talk about type 4, learning at home. This kind of goes to my home visit experience. How powerful, I think back about how powerful it would be with, I had a student, or my oldest son actually, he's in junior high now, but when we switched to Common Core math, when he was learning how to add double-digit numbers, I obviously knew as a teacher the reason for it, but they don't carry the 1 anymore, and they don't do this, and they don't do that, and it was so different than when I learned, that it caused some uproar within our district that parents don't know how to do their kids' homework and they're only in 1st grade. But how powerful would it have been to kind of get before, to kind of get ahead of that cart and do some home visits, and really talk about the reasons why and the number sense behind it. And it really builds that up and show them a couple of lessons. And so what I did was I didn't do home visits, but I did have math nights where it was super informal. I taught 1st grade at the time. So it was just my 1st grade parents that I taught in my classroom, and they came in and they sat at their student's desk, and I stood up front and I did the 10-minute whole group lesson. And the families got to be in on that lesson. And they used the students' manipulatives, and they were using those 10s and 1s, and they were adding, not like they used to, like they learned, but I essentially re-taught them how I was teaching their students. So when their student came home with homework for that unit, they knew what to expect. And, they had done that in my classroom, and it was really informal. It was an open questions. They could raise their hand and ask, okay, well, why are we doing this again? And they carry the 1, but really that's not a 1, it's a 10. And they really grasp that concept a lot easier than just sending home the worksheet and or the homework, and the kids just say, no, we don't do it like that anymore. So learning at home is something that we as teachers can really think about. What do we expect from our parents? And then again, what do our parents expect from us as a teacher? If I expect my parents to do this homework at home with the students, what can I do to help them out and to reach our goals together? Now we use a curriculum called Engage New York, which I'm sure a lot of districts do within the United States, but Engage New York has online videos on YouTube. So this is something that I do in my classroom right now. I don't have to have those math nights anymore. I don't have to do those home visits when it comes to math, because all of the lessons are done on YouTube, and they're short, maybe 4 to 7 minutes in kindergarten, which is what I teach right now. And so those parents can get on, everybody has a phone, everybody has YouTube, they can get on, watch that 4-minute YouTube video and really get the grasp of what their kindergarten is learning. And I think those videos go up to 8th grade, I think. I'll have to look into that. But it's really helped me. I have a 7th grader, and 7th grade math has changed a lot, but I can get onto YouTube. There's a teacher instructing the video. It matches exactly with what my students coming home with his homework looks like. And so I know instantly what the teacher is expecting of him, and I know how to help him right away. But how powerful is that? Your district might not use Engage New York like we do, but you can make a quick YouTube tutorial at each unit, when you're doing geometry, when you're doing measurement, when you're doing algebraic equations. When you start a unit, it would be extremely powerful to make sure those parents know what you expect of them. And same thing what you expect as a parent coming home from school. So really involving those parents and they're learning at home. There's a lot of learning at home tools we can use. Then type 5 is decision making, and I'll talk a little bit more about decision making when I talk about our parent-student compacts and how we can utilize those at parent-teacher conferences. And then type 6 is collaborating with the community, just really using those resources to serve the students and the families that you have and the businesses that you have or other groups that you have within your community. Okay, so now we're going to talk about family engagement versus family involvement. And really, like I said, we're going to use the words family and parent involvement and parent engagement kind of loosely, just because I do understand that parents might not, or students might not live with their parents or a family member, but they're essentially their guardian, whoever has guardianship over them. Okay, so parent involvement is, some people think that they could be interchangeable. We could use them interchangeably, and I do want to take a minute for you to hear the difference. Parent involvement is doing to, parent engagement is often doing with. So this picture is actually of my two boys at Donuts for Dads. Donuts for Dads is a great, like I said, a great way to get families into your school. We had a cute photo booth. They have little props. They take their picture. Dads come in, they get their coffee, they get their donut, they go, the setting is in the school cafeteria. They sit at the cafeteria table with their students. Hi, bye, really not much doing with, but we're doing to. Like I said, it's a great way to get your parents in, but if this is all your program or school is doing for family engagement, you're not really doing a lot with the family, you're just doing to. So sometimes schools tend, with family engagement, or family involvement, they tend to lead with their mouth, generally telling parents what they should be doing. You should come to Donuts for Dad, you should take a picture in front of the cute photo op, you should go get your donut and coffee, you should go sit down with your student, and then you should leave, bye, have a great day. Family engagement, on the other hand, is where the student or where the teacher and where the school lead with their ears. So as a teacher or as an admin, I'm really listening to the parents' ideas. What have they found works best for their student? Really just developing a more genuine partnership to help their students. One thing that I changed is our back to school night. Most schools have a back to school night or a supply night where the students in the early grades, they bring their backpacks in, they get to see where their seat is, they read their name tag, they get to meet their teacher, all that fun stuff. But really, when you think about it, is that parent involvement? Are we doing to the parent? Or are we doing with the parent? And I truly believe that that was parent involvement, and it was just doing to. You should come in, you should put your backpack here, you should see where you sit, and then you should leave, and I'll see you tomorrow. So instead, I was brainstorming, how can our district delve deeper into those relationships and utilize that parent night, utilize that back to school night. And so what we came up with is our back to school night was from 5 to 7 or 6 to 8 or, about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. Parents just came and went whenever they wanted, what was best for them. So what we turned that into is a back to school conference night. And you might think, conferences already the first day of school or the day before school, how can that be? What do you have to tell their parents? Well, I don't have anything to tell their parents. Their parents have all the information to tell me. And so it was truly beneficial for them to schedule a 10-minute increments or even 5 minutes of what time works best for you. I can't wait to meet your student. And they would come in, they would put their backpack, all the same routines that they normally would do at a back to school night. But then they would sit with me as the teacher, and I would sit with the teacher, the student, and the parents, and just say, let's think of some goals. Let's think of some action steps for your students, and really interview the parents. How does your student work best? What do they like? Do they like to move? Do they like music? Do they not like music? Are they shy? Do they like Transformers? Do they like robots? Do they like dinosaurs? Because, we all know as early education teachers, if you can tap into their interests, you have their whole heart and soul forever. So if they love dinosaurs, build that relationship with them the first day of school. Give them that dinosaur sticker and say, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad to see you. I'm so glad you're in our class. This year I'm going to teach you your letters, and I'm going to teach you numbers and how to count to 100 and all the wonderful things. But tapping into their interest, you just gained their heart and their soul. And that's truly something that when students are open to you and that relationship has already been built, it's a super powerful thing. Just building those authentic relationships with the family is key. Again, that back to school conference night, we saw so many positive things come from that. I had a parent say, I was really nervous at first. I thought this was going to be your expectations as far as you're doing this wrong. This is what you need to be doing. I expect this, I expect that. But really, it was truly me sitting back as a teacher and saying, tell me about your child. Let's sit here and let's get to know him. Let's reflect and think about how we can understand each other and come to common goals and really truly get to know the students before they walk into your classroom that first day. And like I said, it only took about 10 minutes per student, but it was so much more beneficial than put your supplies where they go. Here's your seat. I'll see you tomorrow. And I really didn't get to know them like I did on a deeper level of those conference nights. Okay, so action step, goal number 3 is action steps. What families are you reaching? And surveying your parents and then setting your goals together. So this is where I want to talk about the individual learning plans or the individual learning compacts for each student. And this was done at the parent conference night, back to school night. Just together with my district, I put together a collaborative framework that the parents and the teachers could identify the students' assets, their weaknesses, our expectations, our goals. And honestly, my expectations and my goals as a teacher is obviously my curriculum. I expect the students to know their letters and their sounds before they leave kindergarten. I expect them, my goals for them are to know their numbers and to be able to write to 25 or to 50 or whatever their goal is. So those are already, those expectations are already set by our state standards, but we aren't taking into consideration the family's goals. So there's a little place on that framework that on their individual learning compact where the parents can identify their students, what their hopes and their dreams are and their goals for the year. Maybe they have social emotional goals for their students. And we all know how important social emotional standards are. And, we could practice those as a teacher. Maybe they have speech goals that we're not aware of, or maybe they have responsibility goals. You'll find out that as a teacher, your goals are academic and they hammer that into you, but the parents' goals necessarily might not be academic, but you can still help them reach those goals in your classroom. And that's truly when you build that authentic relationship with that family, you can tap into their goals also, and it makes that two-way communication. It's not just you as a teacher saying, this is what I want, this is what I demand, this is what I expect from you, but giving the parents that that opportunity to share their goals with you also will be very eye-opening and very powerful in how you teach their student that year and how you communicate with them. With that being said, at the back to school conference night, we also set goals, and then we have fall conferences again in October, and so we can review those goals and we can think about how is our student doing? Are we on the right track? If we are, how can we get back on track? If we're not off track and we're doing good, great. How can we set some more goals together? And it's just a time that we can really talk and reflect, and that opens those barriers of parent-teacher conferences are where the parents walk in, the teacher tells them all the things that their student can do and all the things that their student can't do, and then they need to go home and fix it, and hi, bye, see you later. It's really putting that ownership of those students' goals on the teacher and on the parent and the family. How are we doing with those goals? And do we need to tweak those goals? What can we do differently? And what are we doing great? And it really takes, like I said, that ownership of those students' goals. When you bridge that with those families, it really helps them be more involved in what their students are learning, and they want to help those let's see, what families are you not reaching? So this is something that you can also assess, like I suggested with the teacher, maybe handpicking some families that are not coming to the programs that we already haven't set. They're not coming to Donuts for Dads because dad goes to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and mom can't go to Muffins for Mom because mom works. So what can we do to reach those families, and what do they need? What are their needs? And so you might find that dad is off work at 3 o'clock and he would love to be a crossing guard. He would love to stand out and watch the students. He would love to hold the sign and get to know each student as he wears that orange vest and helps each one of those little kindergartners cross that crosswalk once a week. He might love to do that. That's actually a true story. I closed my mind off and just thought, this dad doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't ever come to what I plan. He doesn't like my donuts and he doesn't like my coffee, and he doesn't like to come to parent teacher conferences, but really he was working the whole entire time. He wanted his students to succeed. He wanted to be involved in his child's life, but the opportunity and the time that I was giving him to be involved in his student's life was not working for his schedule. So I called him up and I said, hey, I noticed that you didn't come to Donuts for Dads, and I really wanted to talk to you and show you some things that your student has been doing in our classroom. What time works best for you? And he said 3 o'clock. And I said, okay, perfect. We get out of school at 3:15. Why don't you come in? I can show you his portfolio and kind of some things that he's been doing in the classroom. He's learned all 26 of his letters. It's only October. This is a huge accomplishment. Come in and I want to show you. And so he came in, and then we also got to talking about some of the duties in our school that weren't being fulfilled, and he signed up to be the crossing guard. And it was the coolest thing to see those relationships that he was building with his students, his peers, and his son's peers in his classroom. And that was all because I took the time as a teacher to reach out to him and ask him what time works best for him, and then accidentally it turned into he is our crossing guard, which was a wonderful thing for everybody involved. Okay, so moving on to communication being two-way. So like I mentioned earlier, newsletters in kindergarten, in preschool, and daycares are very effective. They have their place. For example, if you're in a daycare and you fill out that little sheet that says your child was grumpy today, or they were really happy today, they ate their peas a little bit, and they loved outside time. Okay, so that's great. The parents know what they did. They know that they were in a good mood, and they know they ate a great lunch and they had a 2-hour nap. However, was that two-way communication, or was that just the teacher or the daycare provider telling the parent what they wanted them to know? So I really want to reiterate here that two-way communication is best. There is a time and a place for one-way communication, but two-way communication, use as much two-way communication as you can. And the 3x3 rule is send 3 messages in 3 different ways. So if you have a classroom Facebook page, if you have a newsletter, calling home is one thing that is extremely beneficial. Having a student call home the minute he learns all 26 of his letters, all 26 sounds, instead of sending that note home that says, I'm so proud of Johnny, and gave him a dinosaur sticker. Stopping what you're doing at that minute and having Johnny make that conversation or make that phone call home, and you as the teacher saying, I just want to tell you how proud of him I am. I know this took a lot of time and effort at home. It was again, that was our goal in August that we set. They made their goal. This is not just a pat on my back as a teacher, but a pat on your back as the parents, who I know works diligently, working 10 minutes every day on those sight words or those letters or whatever they reached, and stopping for a minute and letting that child make that phone call and praise his family together with them is extremely powerful. Again, I do have a Facebook page. It is considered a two-way means of communication because the parents can comment on it. It's private and nobody else can see it, and the parents are the only ones invited into that page, but the parents can comment I post pictures when they reach certain goals, and mom and dad and grandma and everybody can communicate back and forth. But think about 3 different ways that you can communicate with parents, and not just one, because like I said earlier, the way that I communicate might not be the same way that little Johnny's mom communicates. She might not have the internet at home, and she might not have Facebook on her phone. But what else can we do? Or the flip side of that, I read my students' newsletters. My own children, they come home every Monday. We sit down at the table together, we eat supper together, and I read their newsletters and we talk about it. That may or may not be happening with your students today. Mom and dad might be at work, and they might be home with their high school sister who could really care less about a newsletter that came home in kindergarten. But mom has an app on her phone that is directly to your classroom, and she might want to know exactly what you're doing and really truly care about what you're doing, but not have the means to read that newsletter. Because if you think about it, I had a parent tell me one time, the newsletter is great and you spend so much time and you make it colorful and it has the theme, and if it's St. Patrick's Day, it's got shamrocks all over it, and you print it on green paper and you just think that it's the greatest thing and it's so cute that I want to look at it. But when I come home, or when my student comes home and gets off the bus, I'm at work and I don't get home until he is at school already. So that newsletter stays in his bag and I never have a chance to read it. And that truly opened my eyes to my home life is different, and that is okay. But the way that I communicated with those parents that year of sending those cute little newsletters home every week was not the most beneficial way, and was not the most powerful way to build those communications and really get those parents engaged in their students' learning. So stop and think about 3 ways that you can communicate with parents. And I have some examples for you on the next slide. But first we need to evaluate your program. How can we make sure that our programs that we have in place are effective programs for the parents? And how can we improvise, or how can we improve them to meet the needs of our parents that we have in our district or area in our community? So one thing that I like to do every spring at our spring conferences is either by Google Doc or just a paper pencil evaluation. Ask the parents just a short 5-question evaluation. How are our programs? Do you enjoy coming to Donuts for Dads? Are you over coming to Donuts for Dads? I think it's cute when I ordered the photo booth, but is it truly the most effective way to get you in our building? I had a parent once write on there, Donuts for Dads is great, but I wish we had a science fair. My student is really into science and I don't have the tools at home to create the volcano that he wants to create, and more importantly, he wants to show me what he has learned in science class, or something like that. So we started having a science fair. We still do Donuts for Dads. It's not no harm, no foul. They still like to come for Donuts for Dads. But how can we evaluate the programs that we have and make them more beneficial and more engaging to the families that we are working with? So an evaluation of your program is extremely important. Like I said, I don't want you to get off this webinar and think that you have to redo every program that you have in place for parent engagement, but truly just sit down and have the parents, have the guardians, have the families help you evaluate the programs that you have. And you might just need to have Donuts for Dads at night, or during the lunchtime, or during the lunch hour. Maybe just the time needs to be changed. Maybe the whole thing needs to be changed. But I do recommend that you evaluate the effectiveness of your programs at least each year, and really help those parents, let those parents have a say in what they want, how they want you to improve the programs that you have. Okay, so back to communication. Here's some ideas of ways that you can communicate with parents. Some of you might already be using these. Some of the ones that I use in my classroom are Seesaw, Remind, Dojo, like I said, Facebook. Phone calls are phenomenal. Don't forget those easy things like phone calls. Seesaw is an online portfolio. The teacher just creates a QR code and the parents can scan that QR code, and it's just essentially an online portfolio. Things that you would put in their conference folders, and maybe a page where they had beautiful handwriting, where they wrote all the way to 50 without looking at the number chart. They're great cards. Essentially anything that they're working on. We have social emotional centers in kindergarten every day. So I have Lincoln Logs and Legos and marbles and different stations set out around my classroom. And I go around and take pictures probably once a week, and or videos, and the kindergartners can tell their mom and dad, "Hi, mom and dad, I'm at the Lego station with Joey today, and we made an American flag out of our red, white, and blue Legos." And actually that really did happen, and it was probably a 10 by 10 inch amazing American flag out of Legos. And so I just wanted to let all the parents know, or let their parents know, that they did such a wonderful job at their social emotional center today. They didn't fight, they didn't argue, they stayed in one spot the whole time. They used some nice words, and they created this beautiful American flag with Legos. So I could take a picture from my phone, directly upload it onto their online portfolio, and their parents could see exactly real time what was happening that day in class. Another one is Dojo, Class Dojo. It is more of a behavior portfolio or platform. It is also real time of how Joey is doing. I carry around an iPad, and I can give them points or take away points, and then make notes how they're doing. The PE teacher, the music teacher, they all have access to their Class Dojo too. And so parents can log on and check behavior in real time that day. Instead of asking the students, "How's your day today?" "Good." "What did you do?" "Nothing." Well, I do know that you had a good day because you had 5 stars before lunch. And then your teacher said that you were sharing with Susie, and so she gave you another star, and you ended the day with 7 stars. That's so much better than yesterday. Great job. Students forget those details, but if you use Class Dojo as a teacher, you can really communicate with parents and not really essentially take any time out of your day. And allow those parents to see what's happening. Remind is another one. It's not necessarily two-way because it is more reminders. The parents will just get notifications on their phone about what's coming up. Field trip, I always send one for show and tell. We have a color of every week we learn about a color, and then on that Friday they wear that shirt, and then they bring a show and tell that has that color in it. And so I send reminders that way, but again, it is two-way, or it is one-way. So some different ways that you could do two-way communication there. Oh, another one is Facebook Live. When I have my Facebook page pulled up for just my kindergarten parents to see, I will do show and tell on Facebook Live. And so the parents, I usually have at least half of my class or 3/4 of my class parents will watch our show and tell every Friday because they know it happens at 8 o'clock or 8:30 every Friday. I don't know what they're doing. They're sitting at their desk trying to work, but watching kindergarten show and tell also. But that's also a fun way to bring your parents in without actually them being in your brick and mortar building. Okay, whoops. Okay, to end this presentation, I want to talk about another famous quote of mine. At the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents. And what I would add to that is the positive involvement between parents and teachers, or between parents and caregivers, daycare workers. Really thinking of ways that we can show parents that we care, because truly we do care about their students, and we don't just care about the curriculum that we are giving their students. We care about their whole self, their whole well-being, and we as teachers will meet their students wherever they need to be. But the parents might not necessarily know that. And so communicating that with the parents and just really bridging that gap of, I want to reach your goals as a parent, and I want to reach your goals as a teacher, because the well-being of a student is, the success of a student is ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal that schools and teachers and daycares are trying to implement into our programs. So at this time, Tisha, do you have any questions or comments that anybody has asked?
I am going to come on here and I'm going to stop the recording so that we can do a Q&A. That was amazing. There were just lots of things. Can you open up your chat box at this point?